Hey guys, Joe here, the man who always wakes up with a DP on Street Fighter 6, and I'm here to talk about UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Vettori. The first card for me as a new 29-year-old. I'm getting old. Honestly, the main event, though, was awesome. So, enough talk. Let's get to the fights. Main event, we have Cannonier, middleweight's resident flat earther, taking on Marvin Vettori, who I swear on everything that is holy, he looks so much like this one orc in the Hobbit trilogy to me. So first round, both dudes just kind of hurting each other, really putting it down, like really just, letting it rip at each other. And Vettori is the one to sting Cannonier first. Cannonier does hurt him back, but Vettori is the one landing the power, which is really odd and kind of surprising to me because he isn't known for having that much pop in his hands. But I thought he took that round for sure. Second round, though, a little bit different story. Cannonier just comes out like a man on a mission, and I ain't talking about Mo, just hurting Vettori badly with huge punches. He drops him with a low kick. He was like really chopping at the legs as well, just wailing on the head, smashing on him. It is a 10-8 round for sure in my books. I'm going to say this a lot, but what a chin from Marvin Vettori. Nuts. Third round, Vettori is back at it. He's, kind of back in this fight. He's trying to trade with Cannonier. He's having some decent success with his hands. But just when you think that momentum is going to start shifting his way, here comes Cannonier landing bombs again. He doesn't necessarily hurt him, but he does bust him open really good. He looked like a horror movie victim in there, like just nose just smashed and like bleeding all over, like his face. Like I think like he had like almost like a little mask, just like ran around here on his face for like it looked like a giant red nose, like a little kid would draw on a face or something, and just getting kind of smashed on a little bit and striking. Just the power difference was so huge in this fight. And he even mixes it up with the takedown, which is good to, kind of get your opponent's hands to drop a little bit. Fourth round, Cannonier just jabbing really hard. He has a really hard snapping jab. And Vettori is still looking to slug back for, credit where credit's due. Another good mix-up takedown, I think, was tossed in there, if I remember correctly. But yeah, he was. And because he wasn't able to keep Vettori down. But, I mean, when they're on the feet, just big bombs from Cannonier. Cannonier wins another round. Fifth round, more shots back and forth. But Cannonier has this just, bombs he's landing. And he's very clearly trying to break that iron chin of Vettori. And that's enough to take the round and win the whole fight. Cannonier, he wins by unanimous decision at 39 years of age, and setting a record for the most significant strikes in a middleweight fight. And I think he broke it in like the beginning of the fourth round. Kind of wild. And of course he called for, as per, customs, he called for a title shot or a fight that would get him in like, or a number one contenders fight, which sounds like he's probably going to want, like if Rob beats Dricus du Plessis, he's probably going to want that Rob rematch, which I don't think that's a good idea. But he wants it, and you know what? Why not let him? Or actually, I remember their first fight. Maybe don't let him. But still, nonetheless, great performance from him. And Vettori, that is an insane, abnormal chin he has on him. It's like Max Holloway levels for me at this point, honestly. That it's so ridiculous. He's taken so many flush shots from like knockout artists like Cannonier and Paulo Costa, and from high-level strikers like Rob and like Adesanya twice, like just barely flinches sometimes. I think Rob was probably the closest one to KOing him because he dropped him with like a nasty head kick and like counter punch. But that dude still, like a chin like no one else. I think he might be getting into that like top two chins of all time for me. Like I think Max is number one because he's never been dropped, but man, Vettori's got to be number two for me right now, I think. In our co-main event of the evening, we had the dark horse of the lightweight division, Armen Tsarukyan versus Joaquin Silva. And so first round, smotherfest from Tsarukyan. But in the second round is where things got a little close. He got caught clean with some big shots, and I thought he was going to get upset. I got real nervous. I was watching it late with no spoilers, staying off of Twitter and stuff, and I was like, oh no, this is bad for me. I'm really high on Tsarukyan. But he did get a takedown, and he survived. Third round, though, after some trades, gets another takedown, just starts pounding on Silva. Just gets a gnarly TKO finish from ground and pound. And afterwards, as is customary, of course, he calls for a title shot against Islam Makhachev. But then he says something a little bit more interesting later on. He calls out Michael Chandler. He said this on Twitter, and I have it here, and I quote, "If you think the Conor fight's still happening, you're as dumb as your fight IQ." That's scathing, I think. Michael Chandler historically does not fight smart. He fights entertaining, not smart. That's a fight that genuinely really interests me. I know Chandler is now like a money fight guy. He wants money fights, and if a title fight's a money fight for him, he's gonna, take it if he's, earned it. And he does have a lot of casual fans, because this dude rivals like Justin Gaethje in terms of excitement per cage time. Like those two probably like 1 and 2 in the UFC all time. I don't think there's like any bad fight of his. Well, the Tony Ferguson fight for me. First round's awesome. Second round, for some reason I hate it. But like I think that's actually a better way to book him. Hear me out. Maybe this is my application to hire me as a booker UFC. I probably do a better job than the guys you got now, McMaynard and Sean Shelby. Maybe. So instead of putting Chandler in like these big blockbuster fights for fun, which I think is, once again, I love fun, but why don't we have him take dudes that are like fringe top 5? Like, why not have him take on Tsarukyan or Gamrot? Like, can he make those fights exciting? Is he the guy he says he is, that he can make any fight exciting and he's a top guy? Like, I think that's an interesting idea, is taking these guys on who are known for their aggressive grappling attacks that some casual fans don't really care for. Could he put on Fight of the Year candidates with these guys? I enjoy their style, but not everybody does, so, I'm kind of interested in that. Or is he a great name for these up-and-coming talents to really put that good feather in the cap and, really rise up? I think that's the play, personally. I'm really curious what you guys think. I feel like I'm making him sound like I want him to be a gatekeeper, a la Michael Bisping pre-title. And technically, yes, but that's not my intent here. I feel like I was probably a better way I can word it. It was just like a brand new idea I had like right before shooting. So let me know what you guys think in the comments about this idea. But for the rest of the card, Armen Tsarukyan beat Chris Duncan in a very kick-tastic fight. A lot of kicking. And a lot of some ground, like laying prey on the ground, but a lot of kicking. Chris Duncan was weird. Pat Sabatini put a smashing on Lucas Almeida before getting an arm triangle submission win in the second round. Submission I don't see very often. One I liked a lot because even though not a very tall man, I have long arms for my height. So when grappling, it was really easy to get a little lock in. Just gassing myself up there. Manuel Torres got a nasty, just brutal KO elbow shot against Nicola Mota, and it was so awesome. It just like smashed him like right on the chin. I thought it was on the nose initially. I was like, oh, he went out from that. That's crazy. And it was like, no, it was the chin, just right on the money. And my boy Nicholas Dalby got a decision win over Muslim Salikov. That was great for me. And finally, Dan Arguerta and Ronnie Lawrence had a really odd finish. There was a guillotine choke, and Keith Peterson thought Lawrence had gone out, so he stopped the fight. But he was still conscious, and there was no tap. No contest. Super odd. Even though this is what it reminds me of is much worse. I'm not saying that they're the same level of bad. But it reminds me of this really bad moment. Back in the day, Drew Dober fought in Brazil. I forgot who. But he got put in like a really weak guillotine choke and like half guard. He probably felt no pressure on his neck. And his opponent looked at the ref and said, "No, he's out. He's out." The ref was like, "Yeah, sure." And stopped the fight. And Drew Dober doesn't speak Portuguese, is very confused. And they're telling him he got put unconscious as he did not tap and was probably not even being choked. And then Brazil said, "Nah, that stands." And I think there was like some weird that fighter and that ref knew each other. Really, really odd situation that happened. So look that one up. And for the news this week, we've been kind of experimenting, like kind of adding news. Well, there's Conor news, but it's potentially depressing, and we don't know the truth on it, so I'm not going to comment on it. I'm only bringing it up, in fact, to say that I won't be commenting on this until there's a full story. I don't feel comfortable talking about that subject matter in the first place. I genuinely don't. If you watch my retro reviews, we've had horrible people on there, like, Hermes Franca. I just say, hey, this guy's horrible. Let's move on. This one, once again, I don't feel comfortable talking about, and it's very early. No one knows the truth. 0 comments at all for me. I just kind of wanted to point that out, in case anyone wants me to talk about it. None for me, Vadim Nemkov, I don't want to talk about Bellator, but Vadim Nemkov put on a smashing on Yoel Romero in a 5-round light heavyweight fight in Bellator. I always forget, but Yoel went to 205. And Romero thought he was fighting Adesanya, but instead of like randomly outboxing his opponent, he just kind of stood there and got beat up for 5 rounds. I honestly don't know how he survived, because Nemkov usually puts guys out. Patricio Pitbull, he failed his 3-division title run, or that title chase he was going for, and got beat up by Sergio Pettis. Really cool seeing Sergio Pettis, out there, like, having success outside of the UFC. I thought he was pretty fun in the UFC. Thought he got cut early. And also, here's probably the biggest news of the week. It just kind of happened, though. John Jones went to PFL for this weird Instagram snapshot moment where he confronts Francis Ngannou. Super odd. PFL had to have loved it for the publicity. And I honestly feel like Jones should be thanking the moon and stars that Francis is such a nice guy. Like, he's a pretty calm and cool dude, calm and cool, collected kind of guy. Because if you're going there to confront a guy, it just felt like, I think he was there for, like, he had some guys fighting in PFL. He's also there for that, I'd imagine. But he also, like, kind of made it a point to, like, go up to this guy and talk smack to a guy that John Jones did not want to fight. I firmly believe, and there's some proof to kind of back up my theory there. And telling him, you don't want this smoke. When you're telling that to a guy who hits like a Ford Escort, I don't think that's a great idea. Just saying, if Francis wasn't a cool guy, he would have been like, oh, really? That would have been a giant, massive nightmare for all parties involved, and I would have laughed. But that's it for me, though. I will be back next week, of course, to cover Topuria versus Josh Emmett, which sounds amazing, honestly. Man, like, that fight sounds so cool. Sounds so much fun. These UFC cards of late, I've kind of been giving crap for not having a lot of, like, consequential fights, I'll say. Just top to bottom, they have not been really not a lot of fights with, like, big stakes in it. And so if we were to combine, though, all these relevant fights, though, from, like, the past, like, couple weeks and months, we could probably have a really good fight card here. I'm just saying, maybe we have too many fight cards. But also, I want to bring this up. If you have any editing experience and you want to help out the channel in any kind of way, feel free to reach us out on Twitter. Maybe we'll see what happens. I'm Joe with the INC. Thank you for watching.